and Audacity in 3, 2, 1. All right, welcome back to the Barbell Lifestyle Podcast. And today we have a very special guest interview today on the Barbell Lifestyle Podcast. And I will be interviewing Christina. So Christina, it's so nice to have you. Thank you so much for being here and just carving the time out of your busy day to come join me on the Barbell Lifestyle. I know it's your first time. So how are you doing?
Oh my gosh. First of all, thank you so much for inviting me. It is such a pleasure and an honor to be on today.
Good. Yeah. So we'll see if we ever bring you back, but we're just going to interview you today. And in all seriousness, this is just part 2 of we interview each other little mini series because I just thought it'd be fun. And we haven't hit our friend KPI in a little bit. So I figured it might be just a good way to ask you some questions and just think about what do I want to know about Christina right now. So if you don't know what it is.
I was gonna say, I don't think our listeners know what our friend KPI is or like what that is, which is like so nerdy.
It's just like, it's so like, it's like very us. So
yes.
A KPI, if you're in any sort of sales role or just like in business in general, a KPI is a key performance indicator, meaning it's how you kind of like diagnose and keep track of things. And so we call this our friend KPI to call each other up like once a month and just like talk and catch up and like not be podcasting, essentially, like just actually talk to each other versus talking to an audience. Just because what I found is that like being an adult and keeping up friendships is hard. And so like it might feel cheesy to have a KPI to hit or like a goal, but it's like that really is like an easy way to just stay accountable to keeping in touch. So I actually do it with a lot of friends. I've just started calling it the friend KPI across the board, but it started with you, where we coined it that.
Yeah. And it's really funny because I was telling my brother about that because we had like a nice catch up by the phone and I was like, hey, my friend Marissa and I, we have this like friend KPI. And he's like, that's actually a really good idea.
Right?
Yeah. So my brother and I do it now.
Nice. Yeah. So it's a great way to keep in touch if you have friends that are across the country like we are. But yeah, so we haven't done that. We're probably overdue, definitely overdue for a little while. Because I don't think me calling you before the podcast, before we pull up the Zoom counts, even though we kind of do that sometimes. But anyways, I will just kind of kick us off by first, I am curious for just like an update on your fitness goals. And like, I know you've been working with Justin Mahaley and just working on getting really strong. And I saw you press in the 45s the other day. So just, yeah, give us an update on your fitness goals and how that's going.
Yeah. So I talked about this on a previous podcast, but I've kind of hit a plateau with my weight loss. And I usually, for where I am right now, my body set point is kind of right around that like 130, like 131-ish, 132. And I've been maintaining this weight for a couple months now. And Justin actually decided to pull back cardio to kind of let like metabolic output kind of re-regulate again and just kind of see what happens. Otherwise, he thinks that we'll kind of start to reverse. And it's actually been interesting. Like today, I actually woke up at my lowest weight of 128.6, which was exciting. So I think it is, kind of just goes to show that sometimes we have the tendency to feel like we need to push, but sometimes letting off the brakes and just giving your body a little bit of a break can be really, really beneficial for you. So it'll be interesting to kind of see how I continue to respond. But I would really love to sit at like 125. And I think it's so ironic because we always talk about losing the last 5 pounds.
We're like, is it really worth it? Or
right. But that's kind of where I'm sitting. It's like, is it worth it for me to like do what I need to do to get down to 125? And for me, I feel like, yeah, at this point, I feel like it is kind of worth it because I'm like, well, what are we gonna do with kids? So I'd like to just be in a little bit of a more comfortable spot before getting pregnant with number two. So I feel like it is kind of worth it to push, but there's also that caveat of like, how much stress should you put on your body if you are trying to conceive? Like, so just kind of weighing like the pros and cons of everything and kind of going
Yeah.
from there.
Okay. So for context, like, do you mind share? You don't have to share like exact macros or anything, but like, what's the extra push for you to like go from like comfort zone and set point to that next like 125? Because I know for me it's very similar. It's like my stopping point is like the low 140s, and to break 140 is like a considerable amount more effort. So what
Mhm.
is it for you? Like, is it extra cardio that gets added in? Do your calories get slashed? Like, what does that look like?
Normally it's all of the above. I feel like you and I are very similar in that it takes us a lot to like get lean. And that's
Yeah.
just the reality. It is what it is. And I guess I would also say like for the level of leanness that you and I are looking for,
Yeah.
having like visible abs and like I would love some like delts and all those things. So for me, I mean, right now, really my food is not that bad. So I feel like I could push. Like
Yeah.
I'm at 40 fat, 160 carb, and 160 protein. So it's
It's
really,
not
really
bad.
not bad. Yeah, I'm also breastfeeding, so I will throw that in there. And then I have one high day where carbs go to 240, I think. And then that's on a leg day. And then the next day is another 240 day. So I'm kind of getting like a double refeed in the
Wow.
middle of
Yeah.
the week. So it's really not that bad. So I feel like I've hit a plateau, but I could definitely push forward because I don't feel like I'm at a spot like, like in contest prep where I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna die.
Yeah.
So I'm in a really good spot. And then we pulled back on cardio, but honestly, cardio has been kind of sporadic. It's really, really hard trying to balance getting in enough steps, trying to get workouts in, trying to do cardio, and then also run a business. And because I am the only one taking care of Colton, like I only have right now, like he's sleeping and I'm podcasting. So I had to make sure earlier in the day I got in all my steps, but I haven't really sat down to do any work aside from this podcast. So it really is that kind of like give or take. So it's a hard and cardio hasn't been as like consistent as it should be. So that's really, I think the big word is like, I just need to be more consistent in order to push through this like plateau.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes a ton of sense. And that definitely leads me to my next question, which is like, I don't really know if the listeners have a lot of context for like what your day to day is like, but it's so impressive what you have been able to accomplish considering the circumstances with basically like when your husband is out at work all day long. You are basically single mom and at home and also running a business that is growing considerably and working on all these fitness goals for yourself. So, I mean, just kind of for some inspiration and motivation, like how do you manage that? Because I can't even imagine, like you said, it's some give and take, but like what gets you through each day doing that, knowing that like you have to like make those sacrifices and yeah, what gets you through your days?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Thank you for the compliment. I love that like our relationship is very much like it's based in friendship, but there's a lot of like admiration for one another. And I really like that and appreciate that about each other. But I would say like number one is like comparison, like not comparing myself to others, like comparing myself to you, where I'm like, oh my God, I would love to have like a 10 to 12 hour workday. Like that sounds amazing of like uninterrupted work. And I am like, oh my gosh, how much could I get done? Like that sounds amazing. But then also not like, or I guess comparing to like my previous job where I was like working a 9 to 5 and like I had set hours and I like couldn't be home. And like, so I'm feel very, very, very blessed and very fortunate to like have taken the leap and like bet on myself. And now I get to stay home and I get to be with my kid all day long. Is it frustrating and difficult at times? Absolutely. But I feel like that push to like continue this freedom and this lifestyle. I mean, tomorrow is Friday and I get to fly to Houston to like spend time with my cousin and my mom and like have Colton meet his cousins. And I didn't have to ask permission to like take off and leave. I didn't have to ask for, anything. Like my business will like continue to run smoothly because of the people I have in place. And it's taken me a while to get to this point. So don't get me wrong. Like there's been a lot of hustle and grind. But that definitely keeps me going, is just like the freedom. And then also like, changing lives. And the day to day though is pretty hard. And I feel like you just never really know how the day is going to go. So like having no expectations as far as like how much work I'm going to get done or how Colton is going to be. And if I have a day where I can check off everything on my to-do list, like that's freaking amazing. And if I only get one thing done, I just give myself grace and I'm like, you know what, like tomorrow's a new day. Like while I would love to continue to grow and scale at like a rate that, that I would like to get to, if that doesn't happen, that's okay. Cause I'm still, every day is like a dream. So that helps a lot.
So grounded in that gratitude is what it sounds like.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And I can imagine it's just a really good headspace that you're in, it seems, and it's probably taken a lot to get there, and you probably still battle with it every day.
Oh, I have hard days. Don't get me wrong.
But I am curious, what do you feel like you're going to look back and actually miss about this season of your life?
I think just how little Colton is right now. And like, I hope I don't get emotional and cry, but it's been so much fun. And like at this age, like they hit so many like fun milestones. And I think I'm gonna miss just him and me, like just having that like special relationship, and like having another kid in the mix is gonna be interesting. And I hope that like, I don't know. I think that that's the thing that I'll miss the most, is just kind of like the days of just like me and him at home. But also I feel like just, I don't know, because I'm thinking about like where the business was like a couple years ago. And it's really, really not funny, but it's just really cool to see like how much we've grown as far as like our systems and processes and like how we deal with certain issues, and like having a team now. Like that is amazing. So I still kind of feel like eventually I'll get to the point where I'll be like, hey, remember that time where like my office was like the living room? Like I podcasted in like our kitchen nook. So I think that that'll be something kind of fun to look back on, because like you said, I feel like we both have a lot of like aspirations for like where we want to go. So I think that that's something that I'll kind of look back on.
Yeah, that's awesome. Like the cozy quiet times, like, and it's funny that we're saying that this time will be quiet in comparison, but you've alluded to it twice now. So is it okay if I ask about your plans to have the next one?
Yeah, so you guys have heard it first. We're officially trying. So
Oh, wow.
I know I haven't even told you this.
Damn, I found out live. This is fucked
up. So yeah, we started trying last month. We were unsuccessful.
Wow.
So that was something that I and my husband was not expecting. Like he's so funny. So I know I don't really talk about him a whole heck of a lot on the podcast, but like we made the decision to start trying. So we started trying last month, and the next day he's like, "Are you pregnant yet?" I'm like, "Babe, that's not how it works." So when I told him I was not pregnant, he was like, "Really?" I was like, "Yeah."
The next day.
No, well, not the next day, but like when I got my period, right? Like when I got my cycle, I was like, "No, we didn't." And he was like, "Really?" And I'm like, "Yeah." So there's a lot of like, and this is what I was kind of alluding to earlier with like the stress, right? So like a lot of people come to me trying to conceive, like clients, and we have to evaluate like where they are, like physically, mentally, like what is going on. And we have had a lot going on. So Marissa knows some of the behind the scenes stuff that's been going on, but we've had like family deaths in the family. We've had some stuff going on with my husband's work, just a lot of family stuff on his side of things. And like a lot of that is added pressure and stress, and that can affect like fertility on both sides. So I don't know. We'll see if it's something like, cause there's what is it, secondary infertility, where it's like you have no problems with the first, but you could potentially have issues with the second. So I don't know. So we kind of just decided like, we don't necessarily really feel ready, but it could be a little bit of a journey to get there. So we decided to start trying.
Wow. Yeah. Nice. Well, congrats. Because I know that was something you were kind of ping-ponging back and forth around a little bit for a while. Like when you started this dieting phase at the very beginning of it, you were like, well, the goal is to like either get as lean as I need to compete, or to just get pregnant again. And so I'm curious for you, like, what was the tipping point that you just decided like this was the route that you wanted to take?
Yeah, well, for me, it's going to take a lot for me to grow. And I also kind of realized, like, with wanting to grow the business, not having childcare, it would have been one or the other. It would have been like continue to grow the business or dive into contest prep. And that would have been my focus. And while I love competing, Sandy Williamson, she always says like the stage will always be there. Right. So like, don't revolve your life around the stage, have your stage revolve around your life. And so I really took that to heart, because I would have had to done a lot to get contest prep lean. And I'm also I don't have the size. I'm not big enough. My glutes are just right now, like with breastfeeding, like they're so little. And so like I'm just not in an environment that would be conducive to prep. So I also am a little bit older than Marissa, older than you. So kind of seeing like, if we want one or two more kids, like probably needs to happen a little bit sooner rather than later. So that was part of it. And I love the baby stage, and I like have baby fever. I've had baby fever for a very long time. So just kind of felt like all of those things.
Yeah. So I guess let's say, in the next few months, you guys have conceived, and is that the right term? Past tense, conceived. Okay. So let's say you've conceived in the next couple of months. What are some reminders for yourself going into your second pregnancy that you're going to need to tell yourself throughout that process? Because I know that your first was a mindfuck of an experience for you.
Oh gosh. Yes. Yeah. Because I went from 109 to 185. And
Jeez.
that was,
wow.
Yeah, that was a huge difference. So coming out of 2020 and like November, December, coming off of contest prep to getting back to 130. So going from 109 to then like 130, 133 to then going to 185 was just very, very, very tough, both physically and mentally. So like, God, at the end of my pregnancy, or not even at the end, but like my knees hurt, my joint, like everything hurt, just because I had so much extra weight on my frame. So I don't, and then this is where like, do I have the data to back this statement up? No, but I don't feel like I ate quote unquote like badly. Like I didn't go out to eat. Like I've heard some women who are like going to like, fast food every single day. So I did eat really well. But again, I could have been just my metabolism was not in a great spot after contest prep. And like, I didn't think I was eating that much, but maybe I was, right? Like all these things. So I don't have the data. So I am hoping, especially because I'm in a really good groove right now with tracking. Because I didn't come off a contest prep where I was like, I don't want to see my fitness pal like for a very long time. So I'm hoping that I'm in a better headspace for that. And I can at least track a little bit more diligently this time and feel like I can do this a few times to stay a little bit more comfortable as far as my weight gain. But I'm not putting any expectations on myself. And if I track very diligently, but I still get up to 185, then it's kind of like, well, I guess this is just kind of what my body needs to do to grow a human. And like, well, it's super uncomfortable. Like, it is what it is. So I think the other thing too is, I don't know how much I've really disclosed on the podcast, but in our first pregnancy, around 14 weeks, we had a little bit of a scare. So I met my husband, he had just killed an elk, and I went to go meet up with him and everything, and we were packing out. And so we were like, I was carrying a little bit of the elk back to camp, and all the guys were like, "Are you sure this is okay? Are you sure?" And I'm like, "This is like 20 pounds." I was like, "It's fine. I'm fine. Like, I'm pregnant. Like, I'm not disabled, right? Like, it's okay. I'll be fine." And it really wasn't anything like crazy that I would have like been like, "Christina, like you need to slow down. You're going to hurt yourself." It was literally just an extra 20 pounds. And we hiked back like a mile and a half. We got back to camp. Everything was fine. And then the next morning at like 3 a.m., I had to go to the bathroom, because when you're pregnant, that happens all the time. And there was blood in the toilet. And so I was like, petrified. And we went to the ER the next morning, and because it happened again later that morning. And they basically just told me it was like acute stress. Like it was just like a stressful situation on the body. And they were like, "Don't lift more than 25 pounds. That's like the blanket statement that they give you. But I was just terrified to do anything that might jeopardize the rest of the pregnancy, because like I was doing something that I didn't think was strenuous and was easy. And like to have that happen, I just like stopped lifting and I didn't do anything. And like in hindsight, I probably could have like stretched, or I could have done some body weight stuff, or like 5-pound weight, I could have done something, but I was just terrified. So I'm hoping this pregnancy, I like realize that like my body is like a little bit more resilient to things, and like I probably can do some things, but just not push it. So trying to find that balance of like, I'm not doing nothing, but like I'm also not doing anything super, super crazy, like going to CrossFit, right? And there are women who do that, and I'm not shaming them by any means. Yeah, literally wild. They're doing pull-ups, like, clean, like they're doing whatever, and that's totally fine. So for me, I'm going to try to find that balance. So trying to stay active, because it's really hard. It's really hard when you're tired, like, especially I'll have another kid. So I don't know what to expect with that, being pregnant with another kid. And I've also heard, from other women, that it's kind of like when you have another kid and you're pregnant, you don't really have time to like really sit in your feels, and like you just have to keep up with your kid. So it's kind of like pregnancy just is like, I don't know, I'm just like pregnant and whatever, and you just have to continue on with your day.
Yeah, you don't even think about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I feel like you have so much on your plate that like, yeah, maybe it'll just fly by, and before we know it, we'll be back on here postpartum interview round 2.
Oh yeah, birth story.
Yeah. Wow, that's crazy.
I know.
No, I appreciate you sharing that, because I don't think that was ever on the podcast before, but it gives a lot of context, and I don't even think I put 2 and 2 together about why you were scared, like more scared to lift. Timing wise, I don't think I lined the 2 things up, but that makes a lot of sense in hindsight. So, I mean, do you feel like since you've been taking your training so seriously and like been building up so much of a base like this time, like that it's any different, or do you feel like you had the same base last time around?
I mean, I feel like I was almost in like a more fragile state, because as you know, coming out of contest prep, like you're coming from being so tiny to like building back up that muscle, versus like I've been a year and a half postpartum. I did have to work my way back up. I mean, you literally start from ground zero when you're postpartum. It's wild. So I feel like I have a stronger base and foundation right now, but I have no idea. I'm also not lifting nearly as often. I mean, I'm lifting like 2 to 4 days is like a great week. So I'm, even if I can do like 2 to 3 a week, like I think that would be like fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh man, no, that's good stuff. I guess Yeah, when it comes to all that, I feel like I don't have any more questions on the pregnancy and postpartum side, but it's really interesting to see how that kind of all comes into play. But I guess if I can pivot a little bit, I'm curious about just on the business side and growing your team. I feel like the word for you this whole like past year and a half is grow, like grow the business, grow the family, grow your muscles, like all of the above. But what's something that you're working on right now that you're really excited about?
Within the business.
Oh, or anything. Let's say anything. But it can't be conceiving
Hmm.
because we just talked about that.
That's a really good question. I think that right now, as far as the business, like really growing a team, like you were saying, like that's important. And so getting to the place, like, I mean, you just did this recently, right? Like you went on vacation for a week and everything ran, I would say, pretty smooth, right? From your
Yeah.
point of view. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like getting to a point where I can do that. And I feel like I'm really, really close to having that happen. Like I shared this in the Slack channel in Legacy, but like the other day I went to breakfast with Colton, and it's not something that I really do that often because I prefer to be at home and to be working and like doing stuff. But I went to breakfast with some friends, and it was just fun to like have Colton like run around with the other kids and like play in the grass, and like, had coffee and breakfast with my friends. And on the way home, my closer was like, oh, we just closed a client. And I was like, man, like this is what I had like dreamed of for years. And just continuing to refine that and just get into a really good place where I could take a week off and really not have any stress. Like that would be really cool. And I've told my husband like that's what I wanted to get to, and to have that become a reality. It's just like, wow, like I did that. Like that's a really, really cool feeling. And then I know that you feel this way. It was really hard in the beginning to let go of taking on clients ourselves. And it was really hard. Like if I was going through a call and I'm like, man, this person sounds so cool. Like I really want to help them, but be like, you know what? Like this coach is actually going to be a better fit for you. And she's actually a better coach than I am. So like you're going to be in better hands. So that was really hard in the beginning, but knowing that like I'm helping other women like in their careers and like do what they want to do, like that's really cool. So just like growing the business, growing myself, but like also pouring into the people on my team and like helping them make like their reality a reality. So that's as far as business. I feel like that's where I am.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. And just growing the people and their vision within yours. And the fact that you can say that I did that in spite of having an hour or two a day to work, or, you know, going through pregnancy, postpartum delivery, like all of it. Like it's really, really cool to see like how far that you've come with all that. So no, that's awesome. I had another question in my head and I can't exactly, oh, I remember. It was, so when it comes to leadership then, so I'm curious to hear about how, because I don't know if I've ever really heard you say it explicitly. I feel like it probably just comes through in like how you talk about things, but how has your perspective on leadership changed since, and maybe the timeline doesn't line up to where you weren't leading a ton of people before you had a baby, but either way, how has your perspective on leadership changed since becoming a mom? Like what has that made you more aware of or cognizant of when you are leading other people, maybe clients and your team that are also moms? Like what has that been like for you?
Yeah, that's another really good question. So I take a lot of principles from leadership with my like past experiences. So like working 9 to 5s and like having a boss and like knowing what like drove me freaking crazy with other bosses. And like, I'm like, man, that is like not how I want to be. So there have been a couple instances, and I hired my cousin. So my cousin was working with me, and she took a step back because all three of her kids were home for the summer. And she's like, there's no way I can work in any capacity. She's like, if I do anything, it's a bonus, but please don't expect anything of me. But she was really, really helpful because she worked in like the corporate world. And so whenever there was a situation, like I'd come to her and she'd be like, hey, I would handle it this way, but like, you can do whatever you want, type thing. Or I do something. And she's like, I think you handled that really well, so it was nice to get that reinforcement from her. But I really like Jocko Willink. I know that you probably do too. His Extreme Ownership book and like just his principles on leadership, I really, really like. And just kind of the idea of like extreme ownership. Like, so I can't expect people to do things that I'm not willing to do myself. And like, especially being a mom, like Colton, like he's getting to the point right now where he mimics everything that we do. It's so funny. Like if we're vacuuming, like he grabs his little vacuum and he vacuums next to us, or like my husband will like sit in a chair and like Colton will run up and like go sit in the other one and like just watch him and like do whatever he does. So it's kind of like I cannot expect other people to do things that I'm not willing to do myself, or if I don't do. So the same thing, if it's like, and I know you've talked about this, it's like setting boundaries. If you're not setting boundaries, then how do you expect your coaches and your team to do that too? So really like leading from example, I think is really, really important. And I still have a lot to learn about leading a team, because that was not what you and I went into business for. It was like to coach and to help. And so having to really pivot has been very, very eye-opening, and like I'm still learning every day. So being open to like changing and growing and really being like team focused, if that makes sense, rather than like it's all like me.
Yeah, definitely. So that kind of makes me think of like, what do you feel like is your weak spot? Like, what is the thing that you're working on in yourself as a leader that needs the most work?
Yeah, I need to be more confrontational. And
I hear that.
I need to be more confrontational. So if there's something that I don't like, that I need to say it. And it feels like, and I know that you and I both have systems in place to be able to give feedback without it being positive or negative. It's just neutral and it's feedback. And also recognizing like, anytime we have like WEX, anytime we have meetings, like they're like, we want feedback, which is what I absolutely love. And I tell my team, I'm like, the reason that I hired you guys is because you guys are very growth mindset oriented, right? Like you want to improve, you have that desire to continue to grow, but also not being afraid to give it. Whether it is positive, negative, like we're trying to have that neutral, but I do need to be a little bit confrontational. And then the other thing I feel like is not being a problem solver and like being the one to like fix all the issues and fix them right away, because I have a really, really bad tendency to, if a coach says, hey, this macro log isn't working or I'm having problems with it, like I go in and I fix it and I solve it like right away, because that is 100% my personality, rather than like, being like letting people figure some things out on their own, or like having them collaborate with each other rather than feeling like they have to go directly to me. So I would say that those are a couple things that I'm working on right now.
I can definitely relate to the latter. And I found that making myself less available does that by default. So basically, I took Slack off my phone. I don't know if that's really an option for you right now, but it's like, I can't check it after the gym at 7:30 p.m. I can't be on it when it's the evening time and I'm with like Aaron and just trying to hang out. Like I can only be on Slack when I'm at my computer in my office, and it bothers the heck out of me. But to me, that's a signal that it's my signal that I know I can't go back on it, because I have such a strong urge to re-download it on my phone that I know that would be giving in. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. But like you said, it's like it would be hard for me because I'm not at my computer all day long because I'm chasing Colton and running
Yeah.
around. And sometimes we're at the park. So it is, but if I were to be at my office all day long to then turn my laptop off and then walk away, it's like I don't want work to continue to happen.
Yeah. And if you ever get a MacBook, then what you can do is like you can make sure that Slack isn't pinned to your like bottom bar. And
Mhm.
you could probably do that on Windows too, but like, and then what, I don't know, I don't remember if this is something, but I basically don't keep it like as an icon on the bottom bar. I
Mhm.
actually close it down and remove it entirely and then put do not disturb on until it's time to go check it. So
Mm.
like basically I don't see Slack or any notifications come up until it's like, oh, I have a free second now, I'm going to go check it, versus like it popping off all day. That's been really, really
Yeah.
helpful.
Yeah. I don't think my Slack is popping off as much as yours. So I don't quite have that issue. And then I also don't have like right now, I just don't have the luxury of having like time blocking, right? Like I do a little tiny bit, but like
Yeah.
I probably at least when Colton's napping, I feel like that's probably when I should like just turn Slack off
Yeah.
because I don't want to be like bombarded by things in Slack. Just be like, I just need to focus. I need to get these tasks
Yeah.
done because I
That's what
only
I was kind of
have
thinking
an
about.
hour. Yeah.
Yeah. I was thinking about that. Like when you actually are sitting down to work, like not having it on your, maybe just don't have it on your computer, only have it on your phone,
Mm,
because then it's like flip flop, right? Because then
yeah.
yeah, you're when you're working on something, it's not coming up on your computer. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyways, so yeah, the weaknesses are confrontational and not being dependent on quite as much. Yeah, I can definitely relate to that. Just, I mean, because I'm kind of in the same boat almost exactly for the first one, for like being confrontational, like coming out and just saying something that you don't like or something that you don't see is good. Like what do you feel like actually holds you back from doing that, like consciously or subconsciously?
I think for me, I have to like kind of recognize that like this business is everything to me. And like it's my job. Like it's all the like that I think about, it's all that I do, all not all that I think about, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like all that I do all day long. And for some of my team members, like it's not. Like they have other jobs, they have other things. So sometimes I feel like I'm like interrupting those other things, or I'm like, are my expectations too high for this individual and like what I think that they should be doing? So I think that sometimes that's an issue that I have is like, am I expecting too much or am I not? Or, and then it's like, well, if I had a conversation with them, I would know. And I would know. So that's part of it. And I think the other thing, like I was talking with Travis the other day, and my coaches know this, but like I'm at a point right now where my coaches rosters are like pretty freaking full, which is a great thing, right? Like this is a great problem to have. But I was telling Travis, like, what do I do? Do I hire another coach? And he's like, well, do you want 3 part-time employees that you have to manage, or do you want 1? And I was like, I know what would be easier. I know what you want me to do. And so he was like, well, what was the expectation with like client rosters, when you hired them? And I was like, well, I guess I didn't have a definitive number. So kind of what you and I were talking about off air earlier is like being very, very clear with expectations. And I think that sometimes I kind of like not that I hire people, but like I hire the best people, but I also feel like sometimes I mold to what they want and what they feel like would be best rather than like what I think is best for the business. So that's sometimes where that like maybe that hesitation with like confrontation kind of comes from
Oh,
is like, oh, like I don't like if they're like, oh, I'm good here. And I'm like, oh, okay, like you're good, rather than being like, okay, but I need you here.
yeah.
So I think that that's kind of sometimes where the hesitation comes from.
Yeah. And just remembering that you're the one that's in charge.
Yeah, which I don't know, feels like sometimes feels weird to like think about. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's
But
like the concept of the people that should like have the most power are the ones that don't want to wield it. So like it says good things about you, that like you care so much about the other people that like you would actually like bend your own wishes for them to like be more comfortable. But it's like also knowing when to leverage it, I feel like is like the next step, is like, okay, it's important that this is the case, and like this will actually make you better as a person, and you're the leader because you will oftentimes know what's better for them than they will. But you just have to help them figure out how to get there. And so I feel
yeah.
like that's the next step.
Yeah. So one of my assistant coaches, before we had a conversation, because she was a client of mine, and just from how she had evolved as a client and how she was showing up in our community, I was like, you know what, I feel like she'd be a really, really great coach, and started having conversations with her. And she was like, oh my gosh, like, yes, like I've been thinking about it. And she's like, I wanted to apply for like the assistant coach position like months ago, but I just didn't have any experience. So I didn't think that you would even like consider me. And so we had a conversation about her potentially going part-time at her job. And she was like, is this realistic? Like, can we do this? And I was like, yes, here's how, and like send her the comp structure, right? And the fact that like she's a week and a half into the part-time position. And I'm like, hey, can you quit? Like, I need, like, we haven't even made it like a full month into her part-time position. And I'm like, ugh. So I told her, I was like, I'm giving you until winter break. And I was like, and this is when I think that you'll just have it and just be like, yeah, I just need to do this full time. So, so we'll see. But I'm in a pickle right now, but we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. No, that's good stuff. And I love kind of hearing about not only the good parts of leadership and growth, but also like where we're struggling. And it's just funny because every time it's like, oh, we're struggling with the exact same things. Um, and the same problems. Maybe it's that Enneagram 3 in us. But I'm curious, maybe just one more question before I move on to some rapid fire. What's something that you want to be more of a priority in your life that you haven't taken action on yet?
Man, this is deep. Um, I feel like my answer is not like 100% reflective of like, I want to say like family, but I don't feel like I'm like neglecting my family right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think it's just because like that's the first thing that popped into my mind, just because it is such a priority to me that if there's any way that I can continue to like improve that, then that's what I want to do. And I do feel like in the season of life that I'm in now, with like not having a ton of time to work, sometimes I am working like late at night or like early in the morning. And so I would love to, again, this goes back to the freedom aspect of things, is like, I'd love to just be able to take time away from work where I'm just like 100% present and there, and I'm not troubleshooting issues, and I'm not thinking about it and trying to like take content pictures and like like I'm just like there with my family. So that's kind of the priority. But I also, again, I've been telling my husband this forever, but we're getting there. But like I always say, like I have to grind now in order to make that a reality. And like I can't get there without putting in work. And so I know it's frustrating to him, but just kind of like keeping my bigger goals like in picture and knowing that that's like what I want to do. So try it, like, and that's such a hard balance, right? Like try not to neglect right now and
Yeah.
like still continue to nurture because it is so important, but then like also keeping that like bigger picture in mind.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I feel like, especially because you kind of painted the picture of like where you're going is like one or two more kids, and then imagining when they're like toddlers and they have personalities and they are demanding all this attention. It's like, it's going to be crazy to see. I mean, you're going to be able to accomplish a lot in the next couple of years. And at that point, it's like, business might be on autopilot. And then you're going to be able to be that much more there for them through those growing years. So it's cool that you can kind of see ahead to that. But it is probably really frustrating in the moment sometimes.
Yes, very much so.
Yeah, that's really cool. Well, let's do some rapid fire. I'm not coming up with anything new, but I just want to hear your answers. So if you want to hear mine, go to my interview episode that we did probably just before this or after this. But are you an early bird or a night owl?
Night owl.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Beach vacation or mountain retreat?
Beach.
Really?
Yeah, I love the mountains. I love being out here, but because I am in the mountains all the time, I'm like, I want the beach. Like, give me the beach again.
That's fair. Okay. I'm curious about this one. Cats or dogs?
Dogs.
Really?
Podcast hurt first. I hate my cats.
Why?
They're assholes.
Oh,
They're
yeah.
like Emma was like the sweetest girl. She was one of the best cats, but these, oh my God, they drive me crazy. So Taco and Dilla for you guys, or Quesadilla.
It's because you named them Taco and Dilla.
We didn't name them.
Oh yeah.
We adopted them from the animal shelter, and that was their name. They were like brothers and sisters that came in pairs. There was Taco and Quesadilla. There was Kung Pao and Lo Mein. Like those were like the pain. I'm not even joking. And like I really wanted boys. I wanted a boy because if you have had cats before, have experience with cats, boys are just like more chill. They're just like laid back.
Yeah.
They're not as like prissy. And yeah, they are, but like they pee on everything and they drive me crazy, but they're very, very good with Colton. And I will say like Dilla and Colton have like a very special relationship. And I love that they're like chill for the most part. Like you can get like an automatic feeder and they're like good as far as like a dog. Like they take a lot more like care. But if I had to pick one or the other right now, it'd be dogs.
Yes, team dogs. Okay, sweet or savory?
Sweet.
Summer or winter?
Summer.
Digital planner or physical notebook?
Physical notebook.
Fiction or nonfiction?
Nonfiction.
Introvert or extrovert?
Introvert.
Yoga or running? None of the above.
Probably running, actually.
I don't even remember you asking me that one.
I think I skipped it.
Oh, yeah, because it's the lesser of two evils. Yeah. Action movie or romantic comedy?
Action.
Morning workout or evening sweat session?
Morning.
Home cooking or dining out?
Dining out for sure.
Oh yeah, sorry, I forgot. Not what you do, what you would want to do.
Favorite if it's what I do, then like absolutely home cooked. That's why to me dining out is like, oh my gosh, take me out.
Yeah, you're right. Sometimes I forget that it's like you do enjoy it, you just don't do it. Like, and sometimes I get in my head that like you don't like going out to eat because you prefer eating at home. So I had that messed up.
I could eat out for every single meal.
Fair enough. Favorite travel destination?
Probably the beach.
Anyone in particular?
I mean, I keep going back to the Outer Banks because that's where I grew up, like learned to walk, like all those things.
Nice. Okay. One book that changed your perspective?
Definitely The Dichotomy of Leadership.
Who's that by?
Jocko.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So really funny. And I know this is not rapid fire, but so he is all about extreme ownership, right? Like it's, if you have a team and someone underneath you messes up, well, that's a reflection on you because either you didn't train them well or you hired them or like it is 100% you. And, even in a relationship, if your spouse comes home and they're upset with you, it's like, it's my fault. And so I was reading the book after my husband read the book, and like I was like, well, you made me feel like da 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 because you did this. And he was like, okay, I'm sorry, I'll do better. I was like, no, I know what you're doing. Like you're taking ownership, and like you're gonna stop this argument, but I want to continue talking about it.
I want to
He's like,
fight.
yeah, I'm sorry, I'll do better. And and so I think Alex Hermosi, he talks about this all the time. Like, if oh my God, you're babe, you're totally right. I suck. I am the worst husband.
Take it farther. Yeah.
Yeah. No, you're not that bad. So it is funny. I'm being like I know what you're doing, but it did change a lot of my perspective on things, and just that ownership.
Yeah. I'll have to look at that one. Best career advice you've ever received.
Oh, I mean, I feel like it's super cliche, but just like follow your passion and your interest, right? And they always say like, you'll never work a day in your life. No, you're still going to work, but like, you're just going to enjoy it way more. And if I could give advice, it would be like, don't stay stuck in a situation that like you're miserable in. Like, you have the power to change that, as scary as it might be, but we only have one life to live, and you don't want to do it like waking up every day and going to a job or a career that you hate. Like, it's okay to change.
Yeah. Remember when I was bothering you to quit your teaching job all the time?
I was never a teacher, but yes.
Yes, but your counseling job, like I was like bothering you. I was like, so you're gonna quit? So you're gonna quit? You're gonna quit?
Yeah. And it is also, I guess the other career advice is like, surround yourself with people who are better than you. Like, don't stay with people who are just like, I don't know. I mean, this sounds so like elitist, I feel like, but like, don't stay with people who are average, or who like drag you down. Like, you want people in your life that inspire you to be better and to think bigger. So my goal originally starting the business was like, it would have been a dream to like match my counselor salary. And
Yeah.
that became a reality like way sooner than I thought, just from betting on myself and just not being like, oh, this is just like a side hobby. Like, this is just a passion like thing or whatever. And so it is really, really crazy what can happen when you bet on yourself and go all in.
Hell yeah. I love it. Okay. Favorite guilty pleasure snack.
Cookies.
Top song
Or
on
like
your work.
chips and salsa. Like,
Yeah, fair.
yeah.
Top song on your workout playlist.
Anything Avicii.
Oh, and a skill you're trying to master.
Leadership. Or communication, I feel like would probably be a better, like, more specific skill.
And if you could have a superpower for a day, what would it be?
I'd really want to be a mind reader. I feel like that'd be
Oh,
super fun to like, I don't know, like see confrontations and like, but actually see what people are thinking.
yeah. Oh man, that would be a lot though.
Yeah.
Like you want
I
it,
don't
but
know.
you don't.
Yeah, but it would also, I don't know, just like I think it would be very eye-opening from like a psychological standpoint.
Yeah, it definitely would.
Yeah.
Good stuff. All
Yeah.
right. That's all I got. Anything you want to add?
Awesome. No, but this was way more structured than mine was. Mine was just kind of a clusterfuck of questions, and just came really hot and heavy right out of the gate.
Well, I just I kind of had like a starting place, and then I let anything you said direct me to the next ones. And then like if I was out of questions, then I would go to my next one. So I only really prepared like 4 questions.
Yeah, maybe I just prepared too much. I had too many things I wanted to ask you. But no, this was super fun, and hopefully our listeners appreciated it. And who knows, maybe we'll do it again.
Yeah.
Maybe
Sweet.
we'll
All right.
have like listener interview questions.
Yeah, that'll be cool. But I guess since you're a guest here today, and we don't know if you're going to be back, I'll outro us out. So thanks so much for listening to the Barbell Lifestyle Podcast, guys. If you don't already subscribe to the podcast, make sure to do that. And you can find me at Marissa Roy Fitness. And Christina, where can they find you?
Well, hopefully there will be some information in the show notes, but they can find me. I hang out on Instagram, Christy Lynn Fit.
Awesome. All right. And yeah, thank you guys so much for listening, and we'll hope to see you back next week.